Drogath, the Changeling. Drogath, the Changeling, was a master of disguise. For years he had been living among the dwarves of Arvandor, posing as a skilled blacksmith and metalworker with a stall in the market square. He had been so successful in his disguise that few suspected that he was not one of their own. But beneath the façade of a hardworking and respected member of the community, there lurked a creature with a sinister purpose. His true form was a mystery, but it was clear that it was not that of a dwarf. Some speculated that his true form was tall and thin, with elongated limbs and fingers, while others believed that it was a hulking and muscular creature, reflecting his profession as a blacksmith. But all agreed that it was something strange and otherworldly. His appearance was also unsettling, with features that were not quite dwarven, such as sharp teeth, elongated ears, or eyes that appeared too large or too small. He had a cold and calculating demeanor, lacking empathy and compassion. Drogath was a creature of mystery, a master of deception, and a formidable opponent. Drogath was not one to be underestimated. He had been aware of the presence of Kethril and Freya and had set traps and alarms to protect his lair deep in the cave. He moved stealthily and with a purpose, as if he knew every inch of the underground tunnels. His true form may have been better suited for navigating underground environments, as he seemed to blend in and move with ease in the dark, twisting caverns. As dwarfs Kethril and Freya entered the lair of Drogath, they were immediately struck by his presence. He stood tall and thin, with elongated limbs and fingers, unlike any dwarf they had ever seen. His skin was a pale grey, almost as if it were made of stone, and his eyes seemed to reflect an inner fire. He was dressed in blacksmith's garb, but there was something off about the way it hung on his frame, as if it were not made for him. As he turned to face them, Kethril and Freya could see that his features were not quite human, with sharp teeth and elongated ears. His eyes were too large and too round, and they seemed to glow in the dim light of the cave. "Drogath?" Kethril said, his voice trembling with shock. The Changeling smiled, revealing his sharp teeth. "At last, you have found me," he said, his voice was cold and calculating. Freya stepped forward, her hand on the hilt of her sword. "You're not a dwarf," she said, her voice steady. Drogath's smile turned into an evil sneer. Drogath, the Changeling, was a creature driven by his own agenda. His values and motives were not those of the dwarfs of Arvandor, or even those of the human world. He had infiltrated the city with a purpose, and nothing would stand in the way of him achieving his goals. Drogath valued power above all else, and his ultimate goal was to gain control over the city and its resources. He was willing to do whatever it takes to achieve this, even if it meant deceiving and manipulating the dwarfs for years. He was also willing to use the powerful and dangerous magical artifact, the Amulet of Illusionary Crowds, to create a gateway between the illusionary realm and the real world, which could have resulted in the destruction of the city. Drogath's motives were also self-serving, as he was looking out for his own interests and not those of the people of Arvandor. He was not moved by compassion or empathy, and had no qualms about exploiting the situation to his advantage. He also had no loyalty to anyone and was willing to abandon the city and the dwarfs once he had achieved his goals. In short, Drogath was a ruthless and cunning creature, whose only concern was his own power and ambition. He was willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his goals, even if it meant deceiving and exploiting the people of Arvandor.